Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. Sometimes, the hardest thing you'll ever do is walk away from someone who's hurting. And sometimes, the cruelest thing a person can do is betray the very one who saved their life. My name is Nathan, and this is the story of how I gave up everything to help my wife survive cancer, only for her to betray me in the end. I'm 38 years old, working at a manufacturing company. The salary isn't enough to make me rich, but it keeps me comfortable, enough to maintain a solid middle-class life. I've been with the same company for 15 years, slowly climbing the ladder. I married Chloe after 3 years of dating. She worked as an administrative assistant at a medical office, and with both of our incomes combined, we lived a decent, stable life. After a few years of marriage, we owned a modest 3-bedroom home, drove reliable cars, took the occasional vacation, and were saving little by little for retirement. The early years of our marriage were good, not perfect, but steady. We shared similar upbringings, had the same circle of friends, and viewed money and lifestyle in similar ways. We'd sometimes talk about having kids, but it never felt urgent. Our marriage was calm and secure, but over time, that sense of comfort turned into routine, and routine quietly became distance. By our 5th year, I started realizing that we become more like roommates than romantic partners. Conversations turned transactional instead of heartfelt. We'd sit in the same room, both scrolling through our phones, barely speaking. Date nights became rare and felt more like obligations and moments of excitement. Our physical connection faded slowly. In the beginning, intimacy had been fun and full of energy, but by the 7th or 8th year, it became mechanical, something we did occasionally, almost out of habit. Weeks would pass without any real closeness, and when we did reconnect, it felt like checking a box instead of sharing something meaningful. I often tried to spark romance again, but Chloe always seemed too tired or preoccupied. Eventually, I stopped trying as much, just to avoid the sting of rejection. By our 10th year, we were intimate maybe once a month, sometimes less. Our emotional connection had withered alongside the physical one. Chloe would tell me simple details about her day, but never open up about how she truly felt. When I tried to start deeper conversations about us, about how we could rebuild, she would deflect or change the topic. Despite everything, I still loved Chloe. I'd made a vow, and I believed that long-term relationships naturally went through ups and downs. I thought the distance was temporary, that we just needed to find our way back. I kept trying to reignite the spark we once had. Sometimes it worked for a little while, but the change never lasted. Looking back now, I realized we probably should have gone to marriage counseling years earlier. We didn't know how to communicate properly. Chloe tended to shut down whenever she was upset, while I tried to solve problems through actions instead of really listening. Those habits left us both feeling misunderstood and unsatisfied, but stuck in the same cycle. Even so, we weren't unhappy enough to think about separating. Our life functioned fine on the surface. We shared finances, had mutual friends, and were respected by our families. It didn't feel right to consider divorce just because we'd grown apart. We weren't fighting or miserable. We were just existing without passion. Then, everything changed in our 11th year of marriage. Chloe started complaining about stomach pain and bloating that lasted for months. She thought it was stress or just getting older, until the pain became unbearable and began interfering with her work. When she finally went to the doctor, several tests and scans led her to a specialist, an oncologist, who gave us devastating news. Chloe was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer. The words hit like a freight train. She was only 36, healthy, with no family history of cancer. The oncologist explained that ovarian cancer is often discovered late because early symptoms are vague. By the time Chloe's pain became severe, the cancer had already spread beyond her ovaries. Treatment had to start immediately. Major surgery to remove as much of the tumor as possible, followed by intense chemotherapy to target what remained. Her doctor said her chances were good because of her age and overall health, but warned that the road ahead would be brutal. She'd lose her hair, face extreme nausea, exhaustion, and a long list of side effects. As I sat beside her in that office, holding her hand while she cried. I made a silent promise to myself. I would do whatever it took to help her survive. This was my chance to show her how much I truly loved her, to prove that our marriage meant more than comfort or routine. The sacrifices began immediately. Her surgery was scheduled within 2 weeks, so I had to rearrange my entire work schedule to attend every appointment and stay by her side. My boss was understanding and allowed me to work remotely, but it stalled my career completely. Projects I'd been leading were reassigned, and I was pulled from consideration for a promotion I'd been working toward for over a year. The financial strain hit quickly and hard. Chloe had to take medical leave, which meant her income stopped entirely, while our medical bills skyrocketed. Even with insurance, the costs were enormous: deductibles, copays, and endless expenses for medications and things insurance didn't cover. I began dipping into our savings just to keep up. The emergency fund we'd built vanished in 2 months. Then I started withdrawing from my retirement account, taking penalties because we needed money immediately. When that wasn't enough, I opened a home equity line of credit just to stay afloat. By the time her treatment ended, I had drained about 80% of our retirement savings, maxed out the credit line, and racked up heavy credit card debt for uncovered expenses. The financial security we'd worked for years to build was gone, replaced with debt and uncertainty. At 40, I was nearly broke, tied to a job I couldn't leave because we depended on health insurance. But the money wasn't what truly broke me. The emotional and physical exhaustion of being Chloe's full-time caregiver took an even heavier toll. After surgery, I helped her bathe, cleaned her wounds, managed her medications, and assisted with even the smallest tasks she couldn't do alone. When chemotherapy began, I drove her to every appointment, sat through 6-hour sessions, and cared for her through the awful aftermath each time. The side effects were worse than we'd imagined: relentless nausea, weight loss, hair falling out in handfuls, and constant pain. She became frighteningly thin and weak, her body barely holding up. I learned everything about symptom management, researching remedies, preparing the few foods she could eat, tracking her medications precisely, and rushing her to the ER when her immune system crashed. I cleaned her chemo port, helped her through dizzy spells, and held her as she cried from pain and fear. Her mother and sister came often in the early months, bringing food and keeping her company for short periods. Her dad called to check in, and my own parents, who lived across the country, offered help and even sent money. But in the end, it was me who carried the weight every single day. I'd made the promise, and I intended to keep it. That caregiving role completely transformed our relationship. Whatever intimacy or romance we once had disappeared under the pressure of survival. To Chloe, I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her nurse, her support system, her lifeline. And to me, she wasn't my partner. I saw her as fragile, someone I had to protect. Our conversations revolved entirely around treatment, medications, appointments, and symptoms. Our world shrank to one goal: keeping Chloe alive. Physical intimacy became unthinkable. She was in constant pain, too drained to even consider it, and I wasn't in that mindset either. It's impossible to feel desire when you're helping the person you love to the bathroom or cleaning up after chemo. But I never resented her. All I cared about was her survival. I believed that once she recovered, we could rebuild what we'd lost. I told myself the crisis would pass, and we'd come out stronger for having faced it together. 8 grueling months later, after 6 rounds of chemotherapy, the scans finally showed no evidence of disease. Chloe was officially in remission. The cancer that had nearly taken her life was gone. The relief was overwhelming. We had survived the nightmare. She had survived. As she regained her strength in the following months, I expected our relationship to heal, too. I imagined us rediscovering each other, rebuilding intimacy, maybe even starting fresh with a deeper appreciation for life and love. But instead, her recovery took us somewhere I never saw coming. At first, I thought Chloe's emotional distance after recovery was normal. She'd been through something terrifying. She needed time to adjust to her new body and the trauma of almost dying. But months passed, and instead of growing closer, she drifted further away. Her gratitude faded quickly. During her recovery, she thanked me often, telling everyone how I had saved her life, calling me her rock, her reason to keep fighting. But after remission, those words stopped. When friends or family asked about her journey, she'd talk about her doctors and her own strength, rarely mentioning what I'd done for her. I told myself not to care. Maybe she just wanted to reclaim her independence. But her behavior slowly began to change in ways that hurt. She started working out daily, changed her hair, bought new clothes, and joined a local survivor support group. At first, I encouraged it. She deserved to feel alive again after everything she'd endured. But soon, I noticed she was spending more and more time away from home. She'd say the group was going out for dinner, or someone needed emotional support, or they were doing charity work together. She'd come home late, sometimes after midnight, often smelling faintly of perfume or alcohol. When I asked about it, she brushed it off with a tired sigh. "Nathan, please. I was trapped in hospitals for months. I just need to feel normal again." I didn't want to suffocate her, so I gave her space. After everything she'd been through, she deserved some freedom. But the distance only grew. We barely spoke anymore. She stopped reaching out for affection or comfort. Even simple touches, holding hands, hugs, felt forced, like something she was doing out of politeness. Our bed became just a place to sleep. One night, I woke up and realized she wasn't beside me. Her phone buzzed on a nightstand, and before I could stop myself, I looked. The message on the screen made my stomach drop. It was from someone named Eric. "Tonight was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." I stared at the words for a long time, frozen. My mind refused to accept what I was seeing. After everything we'd been through, everything I'd sacrificed, how could she betray me like this? When she returned home an hour later, I was still awake. She looked startled to see me sitting there. "Where were you?" I asked quietly. She hesitated for a moment, then said, "With friends." "Eric," I said, her face drained of color. The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. Finally, she whispered, "Nathan, I didn't mean for it to happen." Those words cut deeper than betrayal itself. She didn't deny it. She didn't even try. I asked her why. After everything I had done for her, how could she throw it all away? Her voice broke as she said, "You were amazing during my treatment, but after, I felt like I'd lost myself. You treated me like I was fragile, like a patient. I needed to feel alive again." I wanted to shout, to demand how she could confuse care with control or love with pity. But all I felt was numb. For years, I'd put her needs before mine. I'd given up my savings, my career progress, and nearly my sanity just to keep her alive. And now, the woman I'd saved was telling me she needed someone else to make her feel alive. I packed a small bag that night and went to stay with a friend. A week later, I filed for divorce. Chloe didn't fight it. She said she understood, that she was sorry, but not once did she ask me to stay. The court process was brutal. Because I had borrowed heavily against our house and retirement to pay for her treatment, our assets were nearly gone. We sold the house, split the debts, and walked away with almost nothing. 15 years of building a life together. Gone in a matter of months. For months afterward, I struggled to rebuild myself. I worked overtime to pay off debts, moved into a small apartment, and tried to accept the silence that now filled my life. The nights were the worst. I'd replay everything. Her illness, her recovery, her betrayal, wondering where it all went wrong. Some nights, I'd think about how she cried in my arms during chemo, whispering she couldn't have survived without me. And I'd ask myself, what changed? Was it me? Was it her? Or was it just that some people don't know how to love the one who saved them? Nearly a year after our divorce, I got a call from her sister. Chloe's cancer had returned. This time, it was terminal. Her sister said she had asked for me. For days, I debated whether to go. Part of me still cared. Part of me still remembered the woman I once loved, the one I fought so hard to save. But another part of me, the part that had been broken by her betrayal, couldn't face her again. In the end, I didn't go. I told myself it was better that way. A month later, she was gone. I attended her funeral quietly, standing at the back of the church. Her family greeted me kindly, though I could see the guilt in their eyes. When her sister hugged me, she whispered, "She talked about you till the end. She said you were the best man she ever knew." I walked away that day with tears I hadn't been able to cry before. Because despite everything she had done, despite the pain, the betrayal, the loss, I still loved her. But love, I learned, isn't always enough to save someone. Sometimes you give everything you have, and life still takes it from you. Now, years later, I've started rebuilding my life. I'm slowly paying off the debts, focusing on work again, and try to open my heart to new beginnings. But I'll never forget the lesson Chloe left behind. Love means sacrifice, but sacrifice doesn't always bring loyalty. Sometimes the person you save isn't meant to stay in your life. And sometimes the hardest goodbye is the one you never got to say.